Is the Labour MP for Garston and Halewood and joins me. Maria, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Parliament is in recess, of course, but it's been another big week because Boris Johnson gave his last performance at Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday. Will it really be hasta la vista, do you think, or will he be back?
Well, I hope it'll be hasta la vista and not a moment too soon, frankly. Remember, he's leaving in disgrace. He's the worst PM we've had in living memory. He's leaving because almost 60 of his cabinet ministers, PPSs and advisors resigned within 3 days because they got fed up of him lying all the time. And it's entirely because of his own behaviour. Patterson, Pincher and parties, all held together by the fact that he lies about everything. He's lied to Parliament, he's lied to the Queen, he spent his time minding the Constitution. So it's a good job he's gone. I tell you, I wasn't in the chamber because I was returning from a committee meeting. But I wouldn't have stood up and cheered him or clapped him. I would have only stood up to walk out.
And it's not necessarily over in terms of a kind of investigation into, his behaviour and whether he did mislead the Commons, because that Privileges Committee is still going to do its work regardless, isn't it?
Well, he's still a member of Parliament. And so, yes, is the answer to that. The Privileged Committee will still go ahead and do its investigation. And this nonsense that he was peddling about he didn't intend to mislead Parliament won't get him off the hook, because the Privileges Committee themselves have made it quite clear you don't have to have intention in order for them to find that you've misled Parliament. So I think he's in trouble on that front.
And what about what comes next, Maria? Because, there's this leadership contest happening now. There's two candidates in the race. Does the Labour Party, do you have a view on who you would like to see win that particular contest and become the next Prime Minister?
Well, I think they're both as bad as each other. They're both complicit in the lies and the failure of the Johnson government. Sunak was fined for law breaking at the same time as the Prime Minister was fined for law breaking. And Liz Truss just seems to be a weird kind of Thatcher tribute act. Well, that's not going to go down very well in Liverpool, is it? They don't really care about what matters. They've not been talking about the cost of living crisis, which is set to get even worse. We've got rampant inflation. People's wages are falling well behind. Energy bills are about to soar again. They've cut social security support for some of the poorest people in our communities who are now trying to work out how to feed their children. We've still got the bedroom tax. They've cut universal credit. And what are they talking about? They're talking about how they can get which cabinet post for themselves. And they're talking about what appeals to a very small number of elderly, white, southern, in the main, Tory members.
Well, that's
none of it. It's like they're talking. It's like they're talking about a different place when you listen to what they have to say.
Well, closer to home, Maria, we've had this vote this week in Liverpool to scrap the position of elected mayor in the city and return to a leader and cabinet model. There's been a bit of a row over this because the council ran this consultation process. Only 3% of residents took part, but the Labour group has decided that it's going to pick what was actually the least favourite model in that consultation and go with that. Is that the right decision?
I think there's merits in all the models that were being considered, to be honest. But the government has, the commissioners that the government have sent in require some model that allows for strong leadership. And I think that either, therefore, the mayoralty or the leader and council is the only way that you could prove to them that you're delivering that. But to be honest, I think the fact that so few people participated in the consultation shows that the governance model and quite how you do it isn't what matters to people in the city. What matters
no one went out and engaged with anyone in the city, though. The letters came through the letterbox, this brown envelope. Yeah. People put it to one side. Yeah, it might not be number one on people's list of priorities, but if you ask people, if you stop them in the street and say, what's the best way to run a city, they will have something to say. And it really didn't seem to be done in a very engaging way.
I don't think it was. But then again, I think one of the reasons for that was the only alternative to engage people more would have been to have a referendum. And that was originally planned when there were going to be elections this year, and it could have been done at no extra cost. But because Cala and the council have then had to agree to not have the elections this year and have them all next year instead, it would have put an additional cost in to have just the referendum this year. And as we know, the council's already in trouble with finances. And so in that sense, I could see why they wouldn't want to have a referendum. The mayoralty was originally established without a referendum. And so I don't think it's the most important thing. I can understand why people who didn't agree with the decision that was taken would be upset about it. And I think there's merits in all of the different models. I just think we've got to focus on dealing with the issues exposed by the commissioners and by Cala and by the problems that the council have had to get better value for money and get things working in Liverpool again as well as we can, rather than just focusing on the governance model.
Yeah, and I think that's also a concern that people have expressed, that the chief exec resigned on Monday. We've had this issue with the energy bill that's potentially going to cost taxpayers millions more, and it is a very bumpy time for Liverpool City Council. Now, obviously, as one of the city's MPs, you'll be watching closely what's happening.
It's very concerning. And the city MPs have been trying to get meetings with the relevant government ministers about the commissioner's latest report, because we'd had meetings with the commissioners. We know it was submitted in June. And then the minister resigned in all of the government chaos that's going on. We've not managed to have a meeting yet with the new Secretary of State. And so we can't get to the bottom of why this has all happened. But we'll be continuing to try to do that in September. It is worrying, there's no doubt about that, the chaos that's going on.
Now, Parliament is in recess, but that doesn't mean that you put your feet up and stop working. You'll be back in the constituency. What will you be doing in the coming weeks in Garston?
Well, I'm doing advice surgeries and some visits and things. What I've found from my long years of experience is that things tend to quieten down a bit in August. So hopefully my very hard-working staff can put their feet up and have a little bit of time off, because it's been non-stop for the last couple of years. So I'm hoping things will quieten down a bit. You never know. We might be lucky.
Yeah, I said that in 2016, Maria, and it hasn't proved to be the case. So.
You can but hope at this stage.
You can but hope. Have a great summer. I'm sure we will speak to you, though, between now and September. But it's great to speak to you on the programme as ever this afternoon. Have a great weekend. We can certainly say that. Maria Eagle there, the Labour MP for Garston and Halewood.